Alrighty, we're carrying on with chapter 269, which is where we left off last time, the laws of Kiddush and Shul. Now, we mentioned the main reason why we make Kiddush and Shul on a Friday night is for the travelers and wayfarers who are coming to sleep over in the Shul and eat supper in the Shul, because they've got nowhere else to go. And whilst they've managed to bring food, they might not have managed to bring wine, especially in the days before, modern packaging techniques and whatever else. It wasn't so simple, to wrap up wine and bring it. And have screw tops and everything. So, therefore, we make Kiddush for them. But now we are presented with a problem. Because what are we supposed to do with the Kiddush? The Chazan can't drink it because Kiddush only counts for the guests. It's no problem. They do it. The problem with that is that, true, you've now fulfilled your bracha, borei pragafen, and because you gave it to a child, but the another problem. But then the broke. Yeah. Good. Next chapter, 270. Now, the way we do with Hebrew letters, 270 would usually be Reish, 200, and Ayin, 70. But it's not called chapter Reish Ayin, because that spells that's correct. Now, why do we want to say it before Ma'ariv? And then come home and there would still be time to tell their households. So it seems. Or maybe I'll read these things and I'll say, oh, I forgot to deal with XYZ, and so I'll pop home and sort that out and then come back. Not exactly sure, but that's the idea of, that when I read this, of Bamei Madlikin, and then I'll remember these three things and I'll be able to sort it out. And that's why we do it before Ma'ariv, because if you do it after Ma'ariv, what difference does it make? So, okay, that's what we do. Although not everyone does it. At Yeshiva, we never did it. Sure, we do it, yeah? But at Yeshiva, we never did it. In Durban, I stand to be corrected. I think we did it after Mincha and before Kabbalat Shabbat. It was like a compromise. They didn't want to do away with it completely, but they didn't want to have it in the Kabbalat Shabbat. So, okay, but that's most Sidurim at least have it between Kabbalat Shabbat and Ma'ariv. Some say that we don't say it on Yom Tov, that's on Erev Shabbos. And some say we don't say it on Shabbos Chanukah. Now, what's the reason for that? Thing is with Yom Tov, because we can't say, did you give Ma'aser? That's one of remember, the whole thing is to remember these three things. Did you give Ma'aser is one of them. But on Yom Tov, you don't give Ma'aser. So if it's Shabbat that falls on Yom Tov, Erev Shabbat that's on Yom Tov, you don't say it. So in other words, it doesn't fit as neatly. We only want to say it when it really fits neatly. Okay. That's on when Yom Tov falls on Friday. And he says, and when Yom Tov falls on Shabbos, they just said, well, it's the same thing. I'm not sure why it's the same thing, but that's what they say. Okay, and why Chanukah? Because it would be confusing. There are some fuels and wicks that you can use for Chanukah, but you can't use for Shabbos. So we read through this and we learn what you can't use for Shabbos. If it was Shabbos Chanukah, I'd read through and I say, you can't use this, you can't use this, you can't use this. And I say, oh man, I lit my Chanukah candles with that, and I made a mistake. And now I'm going to start stressing about my Chanukah candles. It's two different rules for Shabbos and Chanukah. So it's going to get confusing. So that's why some of the custom not to say it on Chanukah. However, we do say it on Chanukah. We do say it on Chanukah. We're not worried about people getting confused between the laws of Shabbos candles and the laws of Chanukah candles. We don't say it of Shabbat during Chol HaMoed. Yeah. And so too on, we saw on Yom Tov. One of the reasons, the Mishna Brura says, one of the reasons we say Bamei Madlikin again is a buffer. It's to give people time to come in. We saw that with Magen Avot, that was instituted as a buffer. So he says that's one of the reasons for Bamei Madlikin as well. And that's why we don't do it on Chol HaMoed. Because on Chol HaMoed, nobody's working anyway. so everyone's there on time. During the week, when people just finished work and they're rushing and they're coming from Vincent Pallotti and they've had to pack away all the legs and they get home and they've only just got time to get there, whatever. Okay, so we want to make sure that they'll still be able to make that for the main part of the service. But Chol Hamoed, you're not working Chol Hamoed anyway, so we expect everyone to be on time. Chapter 271, Laws of Kiddush. When you come home, you should eat immediately. Why? Because the more you make Kiddush, the closer to the beginning of Shabbos that you make Kiddush, the better. The whole idea is, as Shabbos comes in, I sanctify Shabbos. If the first 2 hours of Shabbos go unremarked, and then I make Kiddush, so you've already lost out on sanctifying Shabbat at the beginning. However, since part of the idea you make Kiddush and you go into a meal, so the Mishnah Brura says if you're not really hungry, you can wait, you can delay making Kiddush until you once again develop an appetite. And that's more appropriate that you make Kiddush and have your Shabbos meal with appetite and enjoyment, rather than, I mean, it's happened to me. You're not supposed to, but for one reason or another, that I ended up eating late. Let's say I didn't manage to eat the whole day, and now it's like 4 o'clock Shabbos afternoon, and I actually not going to make it. Otherwise, I absolutely did. Oh, man, thank you. Then you get home and you're not hungry. So you say, okay, fine. I mean, I guess I'll eat a Shabbos meal. It shouldn't be, I guess I'll eat a Shabbos meal. It should be, I can't wait to eat my Shabbos meal. So he says, in such a case, you can delay making Kiddush until you feel hungry again. However, if there's a concern of shlom bayit, or if you've got servants at home that would be kept waiting by your by what you're doing, especially if you've got poor guests who they really haven't eaten, he says then you should certainly not delay, because you can't you can't inconvenience others because you want to do a mitzvah in a better way. Right? You've got your basic mitzvah obligations, fine. You want to do more than that? Do more than that on your own time. Don't do more than that in a way that's going to inconvenience others. So Rabbi Avi Goldfein once gave us a shiur. I'm trying to think who it was he was quoting. It might have been Rabbi Dov Katz. Rabbi Dov Katz wrote a book called Tnuat HaMusar, the Musar movement. And he goes through all of the great leaders of the Musar movement, whatever else. Now, the Chofetz Chaim was not officially associated with the Musar movement, but he wanted to make the point that nonetheless, the Chofetz Chaim clearly was influenced by the Musar approach in a lot of what he said and in what he wrote, because you find statements like this throughout the Mishnah Brura. This is the basic obligation. It's more of a mitzvah to do it this way, but don't go for the chumrah and the stringency and the hidur, the better mitzvah, if that's going to inconvenience other people. That was very much the Musar approach. It comes back to Rabbi Yisrael Salantu, who once said, there's two things that he said. He said you should run to do a mitzvah, but you shouldn't knock over other people while you're running to do a mitzvah. So the other one that he said was, some people, when they put on their talis, they're not careful that they don't hit someone within the eye with their tzitzit. So it's that kind of idea that mitzvot should not inconvenience or harm others. It should be a kiddush Hashem. Okay, so that's the correct thing. However, what if you come home from shul? So you say you should make kiddush and go into Shabbat immediately. But what if the Shema that we said at shul was not the Shema on time? And now you get home, so there is time for Shema. It's now it's now dark, it's night. There is time for Shema, and you want to make Kiddush and get started. So what should you do? Should you first say Shema, or should you first make Kiddush and get started? So the answer is you should first say Shema, and then get Kiddush going. I was at Maharsha Shul in Joburg. So they announced, I was there for 2 Friday nights. So they announced on the Friday night, we didn't say Shema on time tonight, or we did say Shema on time tonight. I think they actually did. And they said, tomorrow, this is the time for Shema, this is the time for davening. We will not manage Shema on time tomorrow. So they announced each one so that you would know what the times were and whatever else. They announced the actual times as well. Okay, now the next point the Mishnah Brura makes is that the Rambam says it is a Torah mitzvah to make Kiddush on Shabbat. But it's not exactly correct. It is a Torah mitzvah to sanctify Shabbat through words. That's how the Rambam understands Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, which doesn't mean remember it, it means commemorate it. It means make a ceremony of commemorating Shabbat with words. Now, how do we do that? Any way that you do that, according to the Torah, you fulfilled your obligation. And therefore, when we say Vayichulu on a Friday night, that has fulfilled our Torah obligation. However, the rabbis instituted a formal way of sanctifying Shabbat, and that is with Kiddush. So when you say Vayichulu, you fulfilled it according to the Torah. When you say Kiddush, you fulfilled it even according to the rabbis.
But I've heard you're fulfilling your Torah obligation by saying Shabbat Shalom.
Now, Rabbi Akiva Eiger said that you fulfill your Torah obligation by saying Shabbat Shalom. And I think it was Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach would make a point of saying to secular Israelis, Shabbat Shalom. So they would say Shabbat Shalom and they fulfill the mitzvah. You know, you've given somebody this mitzvah of sanctifying Shabbat. Now, the same Rabbi Shlomo Zalman used to do that. He said, look, the truth is, the logic of Rabbi Akiva Eiger is very difficult. He didn't feel that was very compelling, that Shabbat Shalom is considered a sanctification of Shabbat. Nonetheless, he says, if Rabbi Akiva Eiger said it, we'll run with it. Certainly Vayachulu. Because there you are really mentioning the holiness of Shabbat. Just say Shabbat Shalom. Is it that different to saying Happy Monday? In terms of fulfilling the mitzvah. I'm asking, are they really it's not just about remembering, but that's the point we made. It's not remembering Shabbat. It's mentioning the holiness of Shabbat, commemorating Zachor Yom Shabbat lekadsho. Commemorate Shabbat to make it holy. Shabbat Shalom. Does that really mean I've mentioned Shabbat to make it holy? I'm not sure. So I'm saying that was Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said. He said, I'm not sure.
Does there need to be a verbal declaration allowed?
Yes, that's what. That's how the Rambam understands it. Yeah, exactly. Zachrehu b'devarim. Mention it with words. Yeah. Okay. Now. Okay. Now, the next question is: are women obligated in Kiddush?
Yes.
So you'd start off by saying no. Why would you say no?
I started with yes.
No, you started, yeah, but that's because I told you already 2 months ago. When I asked you 2 months ago, you said no. So then I told you the right answer.
Maybe. I never said no.
So you didn't even commit. Okay, so right. So we would start by saying no, women are not obligated in Kiddush because it is a positive time-bound mitzvah. It's a do, make Kiddush, not a don't light the fire. Positive. Time-bound, it only applies on Shabbat. So positive time-bound mitzvah, women are exempt. We all know that principle. However, says the Shulchan Aruch, we have a connection between Zachor and Shamor. Commemorate and protect. Just as every Jew is obligated in protect Shabbat, which means don't violate Shabbat, that's a don't. So too, every Jew is obligated in commemorate Shabbat, Zachor, make Kiddush. So it's an exception to the rule. The general rule is women are exempt from positive time-bound mitzvot, but this is a positive time-bound mitzvah in which women are obligated. There's several others as well. So women are indeed obligated in Kiddush. Now you ask the question, if women are obligated in Kiddush, and if they're obligated to the same extent as men, could they make Kiddush for men? The only time that we say women can't do mitzvot for men is when men have a higher level of obligation than women. Shofar on Rosh Hashanah, right? Malcolm Siegel says, I'm just not feeling up to blowing the shofar this year, but Nadia is fantastic. She wants to blow the shofar for the community. So don't worry, you'll do it from behind the mechitza. It is that. So he said it's not kosher. Why? Because men are obligated to hear the shofar. It's a positive time-bound mitzvah. Women are not obligated to hear the shofar. It's a positive time-bound mitzvah. And the one who is not obligated cannot fulfill the obligation of one who is obligated. So there we understand. Women can't blow the shofar. Women could blow the shofar for women because they all have the same level of non-obligation. Men can blow the shofar for men and women because they have Same obligation, men, a higher obligation than women. But a woman could not love men. Now, what about Kiddush? So he said, men are obligated, women are obligated. So therefore, it seems that women could make Kiddush for men. And the Shulchan Aruch says, therefore, women can make Kiddush for men. Motzi'in et ha'anashim, motzi'ot et ha'anashim, they can fulfill the mitzvah for men. Ho'il v'chayavot min ha'torah kamotan, since they have a Torah obligation just like them. Now, the Mishnah Brura does say that he does bring in the footnote that there are opinions. The Maharshal and the Bach, who are two of the greatest halachic authorities, are strict that women should not make Kiddush for men. He doesn't explain here why. You'd have to look up the original sources. But he says that Taz, the Magen Avraham, the Vilna Gaon, and all of the other Achronim, late halachic authorities, said that women can make Kiddush for men, so there's no problem whatsoever. Definitely women can make Kiddush for men. However, he adds in, and this is very interesting, ideally, yesh lahachmir lechatchila. Ideally, you should be strict. That a woman should not make Kiddush for men unless they are members of her family. And he uses the words dezilla milta, because it's cheap. Because it's cheap. It's in bad taste. Okay? In other words, it's not appropriate. So I'm going to give you an example that the Mishnah Brura would agree with, and then I'm going to ask a question on the Mishnah Brura. The example he would agree with is what Rabbi David Stav told me. He travels quite a lot. When he's away, his wife makes Kiddush for the family. He's got sons who are over bar mitzvah. In fact, he has married children who usually eat with him on Shabbos. But his wife makes Kiddush. No reason why not. Everyone's okay. And Mishnah Brura would say, yeah, fine, family. The question would be, we're having a communal dinner, and we've got, 120 people all eating together and whatever else. We say, whoever's going to stand up and make Kiddush. Mishnah Brura doesn't like that. Mishnah Brura doesn't feel that's appropriate or in good taste. Now, the question I would ask is, would we still say that 100 years later? Right? So when the Mishnah Brura said that, I don't know if there were any countries in the world where women could vote, for example, So, is he saying this as a Torah construct or as a societal construct? If it's as a societal construct, we can certainly say that that society has changed. If it's as a Torah construct, these are the Torah values. Okay, Torah values are Torah values. So that's something you have to look into. I'd be very interested. I actually thought this evening, if I'd have a chance, which I haven't had, to maybe do a search on Zilla Milta, right? It's I would imagine it's not a phrase that appears too often, right? To see if it still applies. Yeah, somebody like Rabbi Nachum Rabinovich, what does he think about this, for example? Somebody have a question, comment? Yes, Thea.
So, but you can consider the Shula family, the whole Shula.
No, I mean, you can in the sense that we all love each other.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's not what the Mishnah Brura is saying.
And isn't the other problem called Isha?
No,
Hearing a woman's voice,
there's no problem with hearing a woman's voice.
singing.
Yeah, singing's a problem.
So you can't sing because it's got a lot of a tune.
Yeah, it's a chant. Also differentiate between a chant and a singing. Yeah, even laning. I think Rav Ovadia Yosef says not a problem to hear a woman laning.
I never got that called Isha thing.
We'll do that. We'll do that when we do that. When we do that topic. That's not chapter 271 in Orach Chaim.
Take a minute.
Yeah. Good. Next one. Yeah. So, it's interesting. The Mishnah Brura, I don't know why he feels compelled to say this. I'll just mention it because it's interesting. He says, the Shulchan Aruch says, women can fulfill Kiddush for men since they have the same Torah obligation. So the Mishnah Brura says, it's not exactly the same Torah obligation because men are only obligated from age 13 and women are obligated from age 12. Okay? I don't know why that's...
They're obligated earlier.
Yeah. I don't know why he adds that in. I think that's it. It's very interesting that he felt it was important to mention that, which seems like pretty obvious. Okay. Next halakha.
I've got another question.
Yes.
On this Kiddush now. Let's say I've done a family.
Yes.
Family that's not going to be
Yeah.
on the table.
Yes.
But I've got guests.
Yes.
And there's a woman there.
Yes.
And she wants to make Kiddush for everyone.
Yes.
But we're not family.
Yes. That's the question. Mishnah Brura didn't like it. Mishnah Brura didn't like it.
But Shulchan Aruch,
Lechatchila. Shulchan Aruch doesn't have any issue with it. Mishnah Brura brings it from the Elia Rabbah and the Derech HaChaim. Those are two of the 1800s, to the halachic authorities in the 1800s. So Shulchan Aruch is in the 1500s. So yeah, the Mishnah Brura doesn't like. Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention any problem with it. And as I say, I would be interested to know what 21st century modern Orthodox poskim have to say on the matter. Okay. Next one is okay. So now a person cannot afford Kiddush wine and a proper nice meal, and a meal for the next day, and wine for the next day. So what should you do? So first priority is wine for Kiddush for the night. Now there's a general rule that we give more importance to the day than the night. Kavod yom kodem lichvod laila. The honor of the day comes before the honor of the night. Yeah. You should put more effort into lunch than into Shabbos dinner. Now, that's not what we do in South Africa.
no, dinner is much nicer.
Yeah. But that's what he says. So, yeah, supper, you have a quiet affair. Lunch, that's the big time. Okay, I mean, I've experienced both. But nonetheless, when it comes to Kiddush for the night, remember, is the real obligation of Kiddush. That's when Shabbos comes in. Kiddush during the day is a rabbinic institution to make a second Kiddush before Shabbos lunch as well. So that's why, even though as a general rule, the day meal should be more important, when it comes to giving precedence of Kiddush, we give precedence to the Kiddush at night. I guess it could be the same thing if you have... we'll have to see. Okay, we'll have to see as we when we see further. But I would propose that if you've got two bottles of wine, one nicer bottle and one that isn't as nice, so maybe you should have the nicer one for the night, because again, that's for the Kiddush. That's for the Torah mitzvah of Kiddush. But you'd have to look into that to be sure. Oh, here's another question. Should a bar mitzvah boy make kiddush for others?
Can he or should he?
Let's say can he?
He can.
Maybe.
He's obligated.
Is he?
Bar mitzvah.
Ah. So what makes a child bar mitzvah?
13.
That's half of it. The age is half of it. The other half is the physical signs. Yes, they've started puberty. Now, our 13-year-olds, maybe they've started puberty, maybe they haven't.
They have.
How do you know?
Medical.
So do you do a medical check on them,
No,
right?
I mean medical.
Yes. You're saying all the... Now, how does Halakha define puberty? That he started growing pubic hairs.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, imagine, God forbid, right? Part of the bar mitzvah test is you have to pull down your pants in the rabbi's office, right? Obviously, can't be. Never was, never will be, can't be. So what are you going to say? So the answer is, we assume that he's bar mitzvah for all rabbinic obligations, but we don't give him Torah obligations until time has passed and we say, okay, for sure, he's now older. For sure, now he's in puberty.
He reads from the Torah.
So reading from the Torah is that the fact that only a bar mitzvah can read from the Torah, that's rabbinic. What he wouldn't do is he wouldn't read Parashat Zachor. Right? Zachor, it's Asher Salach Amalek, what we do Shabbos before Purim. Shabbat HaGadol, the maftir is remembering Amalek, and many hold that that's a Torah obligation. We do not give a bar mitzvah boy that maftir. If his bar mitzvah falls on that Shabbos, we give him another aliyah, another parasha to learn. Another aliyah to learn. Same thing with para. Para, some hold also as a Torah mitzvah to learn para. So again, if his bar mitzvah, I remember a boy that I know in Durban, his bar mitzvah fell out on para. So he laid Rishon. He didn't, even though it was a maftir of Torah, he was a maftir of Torah guy, but he didn't do maftir, he did Rishon. Because you don't lane maftir, maybe that's a Torah obligation. Same thing, 13-year-old boy would want to blow the shofar for the community, we would say no. Because we're not confident that according to the Torah, he's actually bar mitzvah. For rabbinic things, we'll go with it. So he says the same thing, that a child should not make, a 13-year-old boy should not make kiddush for the whole family. Because you have some people who have a Torah obligation, and maybe he doesn't have the power to fulfill their Torah obligation. I tell you, interesting question. This was something that Rav Ramon Woodman said, is that he said, in families, which is quite a lot of families, I would think, where the husband goes to shul on Friday night and the wife doesn't. So he said, Davka, the wife should make Kiddush Friday night. Why? Because he was in shul and he said Vayachulu, and through saying Vayachulu, he already fulfilled his Torah obligation. She hasn't said anything, so she's still got her Torah obligation. So now it's like the tables have turned. When the husband comes home, he now only has a rabbinic obligation to make Kiddush. She has a Torah obligation to make Kiddush. So her obligation at this point is stronger than his. She should make Kiddush. That was his proposal. And I think he said that for halakha. I think he was saying that as theoretical. I've never been to him for Friday night, but I would imagine that in such cases, his wife says Kiddush. I'll give you a simple proof that that's not the case. That isn't what we do. This is not the first generation where husbands go to shul more than their wives, and that it's more standard that husbands make Kiddush. Right? We don't hear stories of the great rabbis who, I'm sure most of them went to shul and their wives didn't on a Friday night. We don't hear stories of the great rabbis getting home and saying that their wives that they have to make Kiddush. So Rabbi Goldman always pointed out, that's always the greatest proof, What's been done by the great people in every generation. When you look at what's done by the great people in every generation, that's your proof of what the halakha is, So on the basis of that, I can say that that's not a binding halachic ruling, but it's an interesting concept. So I just want to point that out while we're on it. Okay. Now, next, okay, where were we up to? So, now he says, you're not allowed to eat anything. You're not allowed to eat or drink anything before you've made Kiddush, even water. So, feeling thirsty, waiting for guests, whatever it is, can't even drink water before you've made Kiddush. And even if you're busy eating when Shabbat came in, the Gemara speaks quite a lot about that, which is a very strange situation, because you need to be in shul davening when Shabbat comes in. So I don't know. You're eating during the day, you daven an early mincha, you sit down for a meal, and you eat and you eat and you eat. The next thing you know, it's Shabbos. You need to stop and make Kiddush. Okay. But that's the idea. You're not allowed to drink anything. Now, a friend of mine once asked me, is that he says what his family always likes to do was they would come home from shul, have a l'chaim, relax on the couches, and then after however long, they would get up and make Kiddush. So he says to me, don't tell me we can't do that anymore. So I said, then don't ask. Because if you ask, the answer is you can't do that. Can't do that.
But can't they make Kiddush on the Chaims?
Not if they're having wine. So
It says if you don't have wine,
that's the first step.
you can have whiskey, but then it will make you
Um,
quite a bit.
no, it's more complicated than that. We'll see that as we go. More complicated than that. I know which show you've been going to.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly the case. If you so
And it's for his
But they're
enjoyment.
not doing it for Kiddush, anyway.
say
They're not doing it for Kiddush.
they're not doing it for Kiddush.
They do
But
it
he's
for
saying let them
enjoyment.
make Kiddush. Let them make Kiddush. So the thing is, but remember, Kiddush has to be with a meal. So you have to have Kiddush and with a meal. So what you could do is if they were drinking wine, you could have that they make Kiddush and then they each drink a revi'it of wine. Right? That would be sufficient. But then you've made Kiddush. Right? But that wasn't what he was asking me. They want to sit down with a whiskey, relax on the couches, and later on get up and go to the table. Answer is no. You can't do that. If you want, you can make Kiddush, make a motzi, eat some bread, and then before the soup, go and sit down on the couches, with your whiskey. But the way that he was doing it is not what we do.
And I'm like, what about the enjoyment of Shabbat?
What about the enjoyment of Shabbat?
That is the way he enjoys in Shabbat.
And some people enjoy playing golf on Shabbat. It's irrelevant. Right? What does the halacha say? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's hitting the ball, it's an
Oh, this is a Krishna.
And what's he really doing? I mean, he can't chip it, obviously.
Let's give this a halachic issue.
Yeah. You've got the halachic framework. Within that, Hashem wants us to enjoy Olam, whatever else, but that never overrides the mitzvot. But I want to. Okay, very nice that you want to, but that's not relevant. Okay. Next halacha. So now he's continuing with this idea of people who are eating when Shabbat comes in. If two people are sitting and drinking wine, and they look at the clock and it's almost Shabbos, so one says, "Oh, we should go make Kiddush." So now they're not allowed to drink anymore, because once they've now mentioned we should go make Kiddush, now they have to go and make Kiddush. Yeah.
Well, see, they already got the wine.
Now what happens? Sometimes now this could be, you made hamotzi, and then you realize you forgot to make Kiddush. So in such a case, you should now make Kiddush on the bread. And on Friday night, that's basically the idea, is that on Friday night you should make Kiddush on wine, but your other option is bread. Now that's happened. I'm trying to think when it was. I think we were on holiday, and I thought Aviva was packing wine, but I was packing wine. Make Kiddush on bread. The whole thing, you wash before, and then vayichulu and all of that. But instead of brei gafen, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Yeah. However, he says, since you already took a bite out of this bread, you need to get two uncut, uneaten loaves of bread. Okay. Next halacha, number 6. If you finished your meal and it became Shabbos, so again, you're eating this late lunch, you finished your meal, it came Shabbos before benching. So there were many who always had a custom of benching with a cup of wine. We don't do that often today. Sometimes do, but not often. So what they would do is they would say the benching over 1 cup of wine, but they would say Kiddush over a 2nd cup of wine. The question is, do you say Ritzay in your benching? So I ate late Friday afternoon. I'm benching. Now it's technically Friday night. Do I say the bit in benching for Shabbos? I didn't eat on Shabbos, but I'm benching on Shabbos. And the answer is no. Shulchan Aruch says yes. Shulchan says yes. Because you're benching on Shabbos, so you got to mention Shabbos.
Shira Malot also.
Definitely Shira Malot. Shira Malot even from Friday afternoon, because there's no Tachanun Friday afternoon. Yeah. But you'd mention of Shabbos. And the Ramah says no. Actually, you don't. Because you don't look at what's my status now. You look at what am I saying Birkat HaMazon on. I'm saying Birkat HaMazon on my Friday meal. I'm not saying Birkat HaMazon on a Shabbos meal. So that's what he says. That's the main thing. Now, you made your benching over your first cup of wine. Do you drink it or not? Before Kiddush.
Well, you've already got it, so what is it?
So, but it's before Kiddush. So he says it's an argument. It's an argument whether you do or you don't. And then he says, similarly, there's an argument. Now I finished my late lunch. It's Shabbos. I made Kiddush. Now do I have to have another meal? Or we said Kiddush has to be where there's a meal. So I just ate a meal. Does a meal that I had before Kiddush count? When we say that has to be the meal, is that Dafka meal after Kiddush? He says there's an argument about that as well. Okay, this is not a case that's not really so practical, so I'm not going to go into more detail on that. Okay, and then he goes into more of this. Some say that if when you finish your meal, you don't say Birkat Hamazon. First you say Kiddush and Hamotzi, and then you eat a little bit, and then you say Birkat Hamazon. And the Ramah says that's better way, because then everyone agrees that it's clear what you're supposed to do and whatever else. So you stop your meal, make Kiddush, have another bite to eat, and then you bench. Some say even though you're not allowed to eat before Kiddush, if you eat, you make Kiddush. What does that mean? As soon as you remember. So in other words, in the middle of your meal, even in the middle of the meal, you'll stop and you'll make Kiddush. If you forgot to make Kiddush at night, for whatever reason, or you forgot or you chose not to or whatever else, then make Kiddush the next day. And you'll say the whole Kiddush, except for Vayechulu. Vayechulu is specifically for the night. But, Asher, Kiddishanu, Mitzvotav, Ratzavanu, V'Shabbat, Kodsho, Bavav, Ratzon, Nechotanu. You'll say that whole thing on Shabbos morning. If you got Friday night, you'll say the whole thing Shabbos morning. I'll give you an example where it could be, you're in Sweden in the summer.
They don't say Kiddush on Friday night.
They don't.
Because it doesn't come in.
Yeah.
How does it not come in?
It's too late.
It's like 1 o'clock in the morning or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's this?
Like Northern Hemisphere, yeah.
It does come in. This comes in late.
Too late, well, that's the idea, yeah. So Scandinavia. Yeah, so in those areas, so often that's the case. So then, the next morning, you'll wake up and you'll do the whole Kiddush.
You can bring it in early.
Not
Yeah,
too
so
early.
you...
Too early then.
So just like with us, we can't bring in Shabbos before 6:30. So with them, it could be they can't bring in Shabbos before midnight.
Oh, well, they do have data on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
That's good.
In London, they do that. In London, there are a lot of people who do that.
Really?
Yeah, because especially if they want to include their kids.
Oh, because it's too late.
Yeah.
Kids are sleeping.
Yeah,
And then it doesn't end on Saturday night.
yeah,
Go to bed.
yeah.
Yes.
Someone was telling me they was somewhere in England.
It's a very strange thing to go to Friday night supper. They don't say Kiddush.
That's what they said. They said they invited them for Friday night supper. They said they invited them for Shabbos supper. They said thank you, I'm sorted. They said no, tomorrow night Friday. It's tomorrow night Shabbos supper. In other words, Saturday night. That Sudah Shlishit is dinner. Sudah Shlishit is a dinner. Look, Jews weren't meant to live in those countries. Jews are meant to live in Israel. That's
When they first asked the rabbis about this and they said don't go.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, people started going there, dude.
Yeah. So, okay. Now you need to have a cloth on the table under the bread and another cloth on top of the bread. Why must you have a cloth under the bread and on top of the bread?
The manna.
So there's 3 reasons why. The one reason is like Theo said, the manna, and that explains why we have underneath and on top. Because the way it worked was Hashem put a layer of dew on the ground so that the manna wouldn't get dirty. Then he put the manna, and then he put a layer on top so that the dust and whatever else wouldn't go into the manna. So you came, you brushed off the water, you took your manna, brushed off the water, and that was how the manna was presented, all wrapped up. So we do the same thing. We wrap up our challah, top and bottom. I think, I can't remember if they say it's either the tablecloth or the challah board with which we fulfill this today. Okay, that's reason number 1. What's reason number 2?
You don't embarrass the...
That's right. You don't embarrass the bread. What's this about? The general rule is, well, we learnt a few months ago that there's an order to the brachot, right? A pecking order of which bracha comes first. The general rule is that bread comes first. Here we're doing wine first because we want to make kiddush before bread. One of the reasons we do wine first is so that people will see that we're doing something different. Normally we do bread first. Now we're doing wine first. Why? Because we are sanctifying Shabbat. Something different, something special about Shabbat. So that's part of the idea. But now, Shane, we're poor bread, yes, it's good that we're making a point about Shabbat, but the poor bread isn't, included. So therefore, we cover the bread so that it's not embarrassed. What's the third reason?
Take it off the table.
Exactly. That we bring in the bread after the wine. And that relates to what I said more. Normally we have bread and then wine. But now we have wine and then bread. So first we make Kiddush and then we present the bread. Ta-da! Right? That's where the bread is. According to that reason, by the way, another way to fulfill this would just be not to have the bread on the table. You have the bread in the kitchen. You make Kiddush at the table and then you bring the bread. However, that doesn't fulfill the other opinion that needs to be the Zeicher Laman. You need to have the remembrance for the manna. So that's why. But those are the three reasons that all operate over here. You should make Kiddush over a cup full of wine, that it shouldn't be pagum, that it shouldn't be like lacking. And what that means is if somebody drank from it, then you shouldn't make Kiddush on it. And the truth is, if you have, that's the only cup that you have, so then we'll make Kiddush even on that. However, if the only cup you've got is a cup that somebody drank from already, only cup of wine is a cup that somebody drank from already, maybe you should even make Kiddush on bread rather. It goes into that. But the ideal is you've got a glass of wine that hasn't been drunk from. And what do you do for it? All the laws of the cup for Birkat Hamazon apply here. So go and kind of copy across that, for example, the cup itself should be a complete cup, that it should be clean, rinsed nicely inside and out, and as he says, everything else that's mentioned. There's a whole number of other requirements that exist for this cup of Kiddush. Okay. Then you say Vayechulu standing. And afterwards you say Brura Gafen, and afterwards you say Kiddush, which is Asher Kiddushan V'Tavrat Savanu. Now, you say Vayechulu standing. Why must you stand? Because, says the Mishna Brura, this is testimony for the creation of heaven and earth, and testimony is said standing. Even though we already said this in davening, we say it again in order to fulfill the obligation for those who weren't in shul. So I would say come back to answer Rav Ramon's question, this is the leveler. In other words, yes, we come back from shul and I've already said Vayechulu and my wife hasn't. So I say Vayechulu. Now we're all on the same level. Now when I say Brura Gafen and Sheh Kiddushan V'Tavrat Savanu, we're all operating from exactly the same place. Once you said Vayechulu, then we're all equal. I think that's the answer to what he says. The Rokeach is one of the commentaries that's quite steeped in Kabbalah, says in the name of a midrash that we need to say Vayechulu 3 times. Once in davening, once after davening, and once in Kiddush. That's what we do. We say during the Amidah, we say it right after the Amidah, we say when we come home. So he says it's not just that we're saying it to fulfill the obligation for those who weren't there, but that there's a special reason why we say it. And they say, what if I made Kiddush but I didn't say Vayechulu? So then I say Vayechulu during the meal even. Okay, that's so far. Now he says, so that was all the Shulchan Aruch. Now the Ramah says, you can stand during Kiddush. So remember, he said Vayechulu, you stand. He didn't say what you do for Kiddush. The Ramah says you can stand for Kiddush, but it's better to sit. What's the difference? Because he says it's got to be Kiddush with your meal. If I'm standing for Kiddush and sitting with my meal, there's like a break between the Kiddush and the meal, right? They're not really so connected. This really integrates the Kiddush and the meal because I'm sitting for Kiddush, sitting for my meal. The Kiddush is like part of the meal. That's the idea. Makes the Kiddush more a part of the meal. And that's what the Vilna Gaon says. And he brings another reason. The Vilna Gaon agrees with us that you should sit for Kiddush. And he brings another reason as well, is that since when I'm fulfilling a mitzvah for you, it's better that we're together. And when you're standing together, that's not as good as sitting together. When we're sitting together, we're really together. But when we're standing together, anyone could wander away at any moment. You haven't got that same kind of grouping. So those are 2 reasons why you should sit for Kiddush. One, so that it's more a part of the meal. and 2, so that it's more a part of the group.
Rabbi.
1 second. According to the Vilna Gaon, everyone should be sitting for Kiddush, and says the Mishnah Brura, this is more correct. This is more correct to do. To do. It should all be around the table and not kind of scattered and all over the place. And this one's in this room and that one's in that room. But they should all be together. But it's better if they're all sitting. Now, what it seems that that's not our custom, though, right?
No.
South African custom,
All standing.
we all stand.
Because you're going to wash and then you're coming back and then
I don't
sit.
think that's right. I don't think that's right.
It's washed before.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
much clever. They
Yeah.
wash before Kiddush, so that you go from
Straight into
oh,
it.
it's later time to Kiddush.
Well, I've asked you that once, but we do that in big meals. In that
Yeah.
house, you going because I read it
Yes.
and then you
Yeah,
see
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's the German custom. It's not the South African custom. I don't think it's the
That also
Lithuanian
makes
custom.
sense. Everyone's finished.
Yeah.
Finish, drink a bit of wine.
Yeah.
Eat a bit of bread.
Yeah.
There's
So
a gap between the washing and the bread, huh?
yeah. So the Mishnah Brura prefers that custom. We have to look into that more. As I said, clearly that isn't what we do. And then he says, then the Ramah continues, but you should stand a little for the honor of the day. Because you say, Yom HaShishi v'yichulu HaShamayim. Now, why do we say Yom HaShishi v'yichulu HaShamayim? Yom HaShishi means the fixed day, that's Friday. Friday and heaven and earth were finished. Why do you start talking about Friday? Just say, v'yichulu HaShamayim v'aretz.
That's what the Torah says.
Yeah, but the Torah, you could go all the way back. Bereshit, bara Elokim, et Shemayim v'aretz. You're either starting with Shabbos, you're not starting with Shabbos.
But you're coming into it.
Well, I'm saying, why pick that? So what he says is, we start with Yom HaShishi, because when you say, Yom HaShishi v'yichulu HaShamayim, those first 4 words, Yom, Yud, HaShishi, Hey, v'yichulu, Vav, HaShamayim, Hey. Yud and Hey and Vav, and it's a hint to Hashem's name. That's why he said the Yom HaShishi. Why do we say Vayir Vayivoker Yom HaShishi? He says that here, what I would say is there's a general rule that we don't say incomplete psukim. You should only say a complete pasuk. You shouldn't say half a pasuk. So the whole pasuk is Vayir Vayivoker Yom HaShishi, but we say that in a whisper because it messes up the whole thing of the name of Hashem. So we say it that we're saying it, so Vayir Vayivoker, so that we're saying the whole verse. And we say Yom HaShishi v'achol Shamayim, so that we're starting with those letters of Hashem's name. I read.
Full.
Yes,
Some people don't say it at all.
that's interesting. I don't know about that.
Whole long
There's a
story.
whole-
There's a
there's
whole
whole
long
business
yeah, that
inside
some people do before Kiddush.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When we were in Chile.
But that figure is
Yeah.
is incomplete.
Yes,
somewhere.
that's interesting. I'd be
They
interested to
may
see
be
that.
doing the whole sheet.
Yeah.
When we were in Chile, we were some very type rabbis. And, what
Ah. Nice. When you are Kiddush, the candles. You should look at the cup. That's what the Ramah says. And we will leave it there. Please God, we will continue next time.
Where did we finish? Which chapter?
2:7, halfway through 2:7. Anyway, 2:7.